It's been a year now that Austin Faith Dialogue has been airing on KNVA TV. That anniversary provides the occasion to provide highlights of the past 12 months on this series. Please join us for our Austin Faith Dialogue Retrospective.
Austin Faith Dialogue, at the crossroads of religion and life, a series highlighting the cultural and social interactions between the worshiping and religious communities in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KXAN. Join us now in Austin Faith Dialogue.
Hello, I'm Richard Thompson, your host for today's program with Austin Metropolitan Ministries. We welcome you for this very special program because we're looking back over the past 12 months that Austin Faith Dialogue has been airing here on KNVA TV. We'll feature highlights of the program since last January. But before viewing these, we want to welcome the one who has been welcoming us here, Ron Alaveda, General Manager, Station Manager of this KNVA TV. And Ron, just let's right up at the beginning say how much we appreciate your hospitality.
Well, thank you very much, Richard, and thanks for inviting me on the show today, too. My partner, I think I can speak for Mark Goldberg, also the general manager of KNVA TV, that we've just been proud with this association over the past year, and glad you approached us as when we first signed on the air in 1995 with regular programming. You know, we were constantly looking for something different.
Yes.
To broadcast as well in the form of public service. And your idea just fit into every one of those little category slots that we were looking for, and we thank you.
All right.
Not just for this past year, but for the many years to come.
All right. Well, we look forward to that for sure. And I know that you're the only locally owned station in Austin, and that you therefore have a particular interest in the community. And you see our program here is fitting into that purpose.
Without a doubt. There's so many different religious denominations here in Austin, and as a station owner, you're always looking for as many diverse opinions as possible, too. And it's a horrible phrase to kill so many birds with one stone, but we were able to do that with this particular show because we were not just focusing on one religious denomination. They were all coming together through Austin Metropolitan Ministries, and we provided a vehicle for all those different opinions.
Well, the first purpose of our program is to highlight faith traditions. We also have the purpose of bringing to public attention social issues from an ecumenical standpoint. We do pastoral issues, how congregations are caring for one another. And then we do cultural issues. Those are our four-fold program emphases.
It's a broad spectrum.
Well,
and we've enjoyed seeing that, too.
Yeah. And the first one I'd like for us to take a look at now that has to do with the faith traditions. And in this, we'll be seeing the first woman rabbi in Austin, Elizabeth Kunstler, who was with us on a program last year. We're also going to be looking at what happened at Thanksgiving, where the Austin Metropolitan Ministries has its annual service, community service, that this last year was at the Hindu temple, Bursanadam. And we'll see Priyadasi being interviewed on that program. And then finally, we're going to catch sight of those who were on the broadcast celebrating the 150th anniversary of Austin's First Baptist Church. So let's take a look at that, and then we'll come back and visit a bit about it. What is it that you're discovering that you could identify as at the very heart of your spiritual sharing with folks, both within your community and anyone who's looking in?
It's a tough question. It's Judaism, by and large, is a religion of doing and a religion of deed. I don't take. I mean, not to say I take no issue with what people believe, but by and large, Reform Judaism especially is a Judaism of individuality. We're supposed to study and then make our own choices. I, as a rabbi, my job is to teach and to show people what all their choices are and then let them choose.
Okay.
So, and I let them choose by example, certainly. I lead my own example, but even within our congregation, my practices and Rabbi Folberg's practices are different. Services, I wear a yarmulke and he doesn't. So we each have our own. We've come to those decisions in our own way, spiritually, in our own way, religiously. I grew up Reform, and he grew up conservative, and yet this is how we've ended up.
And we have guests coming in all the time. Our temple tower is 90 feet tall, and it's seen from Camp Ben McCullough Road, and people just are intrigued by it. It's a very amazing structure, so they come in all the time, having no idea it's a Hindu temple or what is Hinduism.
Yeah.
And they take off their shoes before they come inside, and after a few minutes, we find that everyone is extremely comfortable with the whole situation, because the way that Hindus believe is that we're all worshiping the same God. You do it in a different way, and I do it in a different way, but there's a respect, an inherent respect in the Hindu faith. So when people come in of whatever faith, there's no restriction that they can't come in or they can't participate in different things. All Hindu festivals are open for everyone.
I see. I think it'd be helpful for our viewers to take a look at the way your place is pictured from the outside in this little video that you brought us. So let's take a quick look at that, and maybe you can make a commentary as we see it.
This is the back of the temple, and this temple is, in fact, the largest Hindu temple in North America. We're seeing the shrine with the temple tower. That's a very traditional temple architecture in northern India, that tower. And that's actually the shrine. There's a large hall inside of the temple where about 1,500 people can sit and worship the deities in the altar, which is beneath that tower. Now we're seeing the front of the temple. It has been under construction since 1993, and it's not really complete yet, but pretty close now.
And you're on a acreage of land out there. How large is that?
We have 200 acres, and in fact, we've made those 200 acres to represent a holy area in North India, which is called Vrindavan, Braj. And we've made the land to represent some of those holy places there. So Barsana-Dham has really become a place of pilgrimage for Hindus in America. When they can't go back all the way across the ocean to visit that holy place, these very holy places are represented there on the land. It's a very unique Hindu temple. There isn't anything else like it, in fact, outside of India.
Really? Okay, so that people who maybe grew up in India but can't get back will feel at home.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Austin has, it's not possible to say exactly how many, but about 2,000 to 3,000 Indian Hindus in Austin.
Is that right? And this is where they come for their worship?
Yes, this is the only Hindu temple in Austin. There are many Hindu temples established all across America, but this is the first one in Austin.
Our site was located across from the governor's mansion. It's at the corner of 10th and Colorado. And one of our distinguished members was General Sam Houston, who later became a senator. Okay,
let's just so that we're not talking in the abstract, let's call up for a picture of the very first building that you had there. You say near the governor's mansion.
That's correct. And this shot is a depiction of the church in about 1880 when it was added on and remodeled, and electric lights lamp outside the main entrance was installed, which was a great event at that time.
Oh, yeah. And is that the state capitol in the background? Sort of looks like that.
Yes, it could well be.
Yeah. Right. And then that gave way to this building here that we're seeing on the monitor.
Yes, that is, the building was built in 1915, and we worshiped there for until 1970, when it was sold to the state of Texas for the acquisition of its property across from the mansion, and we relocated our new facility at that time on the old public school square at the corner of Trinity and 9th Street.
And let's take a look at what that looks like today. That's your where you are at 9th and Trinity.
Yeah, this is our location where we are now. We've been there for a good number of years, and incidentally, I'm one of the members of the design team that designed that building back in 1970.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about that design in just a minute. But let's take a look, one more shot that we have here of, what is that bell?
Well, that is an old bell that a married couple that got married in our church gave to the church in about 1858.
Wow.
And the bell consistently was used to ring and announce the hour of the day each day, as well as to warn people of floods and dangers, good news and bad news, as well as the fact that it was said that the mayor of Austin.
Okay, well now,
Fascinating photos there too. I had never seen the Hindu temple, and
really?
no, I had not. I know it was out by Dripping Springs, and it's a big area and all that. But that was fascinating stuff.
I mean, that's news to you, Ron.
Sure it is. And it's news for a lot of folks. I mean, we were talking before we started the broadcast about, you know, we need more vehicles like this so that people hear different opinions, diversity of opinions, and stories that may not appear on the nightly news.
Right.
In the regular outlet of the 5, 6, and 10.
Well, I will say that not only in the year of this past year, but over the 10 years that we've been on the air, it's been our pleasure to find just how much is in this community that is of interest to the general public about what's going on with whether it's the Hindu temple or the first woman rabbi in the city, and that. This is something which even newspapers can't feature in quite the same way we can do it here on television, and we're pleased to be able to do it with you.
Well, that's wonderful. If you know, I could for just a second, you know, the news of the day with the way that the city is growing by leaps and bounds, and yes, sometimes we have to fill around those nasty commercials and all that, so we can pay for all the news gathering that we've been doing throughout the day and all. There's a lot of ground to cover. And we can't fit it all in. I mean, every day those assignment editors have a stack of news stories and events that are going to be happening that day. Those are planned activities.
Right.
Of course, you have the unplanned, like the fires and then horrible spot news, as we call it.
And I think it's really important for people to know that you donate this time and this facility to us for this purpose. I mean, Austin Metropolitan Ministries is a recipient of a very gracious and generous gift from you.
Thank you.
So before anything else is said, let me say thank you.
We do that as a matter of public service. We're always trying to find interesting, creative, innovative, different types of programs to put on the air that may have not been seen before.
Okay.
And this is the perfect vehicle for that.
I'd like to just pause here to take a look at our second purpose,
Sure.
which is to address pressing social issues within the metropolitan area. But unlike other television programs, these are the ones that are done with a standpoint of ecumenical faith perspective. So it's now that we're going to view footage from an interview with Salvation Army officials about the homeless in Austin. The segment will be followed with a visit those who are connected to the Community Mentoring Network, a service rendered to juvenile offenders. And then finally, you're going to be seeing part of a conversation with Liz Coker, founder and CEO of Mimco Technology Laboratories, who discuss the matter of business ethics. So let's all take a look.
Just have you tell us a little bit. You're relatively new in the city, aren't you, Major?
Yes, we've been here now approximately 3 months. We came toward the end of June. But we're not really new to the area. We were stationed in San Antonio for 4 years. Went from there to Birmingham, Alabama, and then back to Texas.
I see. So how do you feel about being back in Texas?
I love it.
Do you?
Yes.
Were you here from Texas originally?
Oklahoma City is my home, and I'm glad to be back west of the Mississippi.
I got you. All right. Well, I think that as you've worked with the Army and these other places, do you do the same thing from one place to the other, the same program from in each city?
Well, it depends on the appointment that they send you to. Now, this appointment will be basically the same as the last two. Prior to that, I was served at the divisional headquarters in Washington, D.C. as divisional secretary, handling property and insurance and a lot of paperwork.
Oh, I see.
So this type of an appointment is really more rewarding than that.
Okay. Well, for folks who are not aware of particularly how the Salvation Army services homeless people, let's start with that. And before we're done, we'll look at the little broader picture. But that's been our focus over the last couple of weeks since that article in the paper came out. What is there that the Salvation Army does in relation to the homeless that's unique and nobody else is doing?
I'll let Karen answer that. She is really more familiar with what the local scene here than I
Okay,
am.
good.
One thing that's unique is we're the only overnight shelter for the homeless. We have 244 beds that are free to stay in for homeless men, women, and families. And the goals for the Salvation Army is to move folks from homelessness to independence. And we do that first by meeting that basic need. We have to be realistic to say folks can't go out and looking for jobs and housing if they haven't had a meal, if they haven't had a shower, if they don't have clean clothes. So we're first going to meet that basic need, and then we're going to focus on some of the other issues.
What's been your experience as far as how volunteers come about, Margaret?
Volunteers come from word of mouth. There's been someone who's been a part of the mentoring program, or they heard about it, so they pass it on to someone else. Our greatest need is for male mentors. So I really want to say that, because most of our clientele are males between the ages of, for this particular program, between the ages of 10 and 15. And again, the children that are part of this diversion program are first-time offenders. They're on the front end of the juvenile crime cycle as opposed to the middle or the back end. This is the best time to make an impact or have some influence on these young people, and that's why our success rate has been so high, is because we're working with kids on the front end.
Catching them early.
Exactly.
Okay. And we were talking about Proverbs as a biblical source of inspiration for your work. And in addition to the matter of honesty and trustworthiness and so on, there's some other things in there that we were talking before the show that you used a good bit in your relationships. As people come to work for you, do you give them the book of Proverbs to read in terms of...
No.
Well, how do you work it in then to your relationships?
Well, it's really just the basis for the way the company is set up, and it's based on Christian principle. And we try to treat our team members that way. We try to treat our team members the way we want to be treated and the way we would want to be treated. That, the guidelines come from the book of Proverbs. We try to treat our customers exactly the way we would want to be treated. And we try to guide our decisions every day, our strategic planning.
Okay, well, now there you have business ethics.
Right.
You've got mentoring with juvenile offenders. You've got the issue of homelessness. You've got news.
Lots of it.
And but you don't hear right now. You're not doing news programs on KNVA, are you?
We don't have all the resources that all the other stations do to provide several newscasts a day. We're housed within Channel 36's building, and we do use their wonderful resources to gather some of the news of the day, whether it be local or national. And our commitment also in trying to do something different, but also to address the needs of the community, we've come together and realized that we can make an impact as a local station, and allowing people to know that it is a local station in doing 30-minute documentaries at KMVA close-ups that we've done.
I see.
This past month, we had traveled to Washington with a little girl. Once again, another kids' educational program that we do here, a show by a child and produced by a child and for children. It's called Kids Ideas, with a young girl by the name of Chelsea Hernandez. And she and her family who assist her in the production of the program, Kids Ideas.
So what you're doing is you're making, you're reporting news in a documentary form.
Documentary type form.
And
We traveled to Washington. That was one. Right. We've also done the 6-month aftermath, an hour-long special with the KXAN folks in the aftermath of the tornado in Gerald.
I see.
We traveled to Bosnia to see what our Central Texas troops are doing over there in keeping the peace and all. So
well,
yes.
One of the things that I'm pleased that we can do is we can add to your news content with programs like this. I mean, this fellow from the Salvation Army just arrived here. He had some things to say that I think is of interest that maybe wouldn't make it on a local news broadcast, but we're pleased to enrich your program from that standpoint.
And that's terrific, because it's also at a non-traditional time. Where you don't have to tune in at 5, 6, and 10. It could be any time during the day. And of course, you all are in the mornings, which is wonderful for a lot of people wanting that alternative for weekend programming.
Okay. Well, we're going to be continuing to try to enrich it from that standpoint and from one other. This is our third purpose, which has to do with bringing to public awareness pastoral functions being exercised within the religious community, but of interest to everyone. For this, we're going to be looking at an interview with Janet Makis, the Director of Spiritual Care for Hospice Austin, a conversation with Dr. Robert L. Rock of the Eye Institute of Austin, who periodically takes his professional practice to the place where Albert Schweitzer conducted his mission work in Africa. And finally, we'll be replaying moments in an interview about cults. Let's take a look at this.
Well, that was very touching. And I think that as you look at that, as a spiritual director, one of the things that was being said, that the doctor was saying, is that some people will endure until a certain occasion is passed. The will to live, the spiritual aspect of our being. I mean, that goes beyond psychological or medical or even emotional. It seems to me that that's one of the things that came to me from this.
Right.
You seen that a good bit?
That there is this overwhelming will to live.
To hold on
and
beyond
to hold
a certain
on.
point.
Yes, and sometimes when it seems completely unexplainable, someone continues to live. I was just talking with someone the other day who was saying that her mother had lived for 4 days after it was clear that her kidneys had completely shut down. And what she believed was she was waiting for the one child out of 10. There were 9 were there.
Oh, really?
And when the 10th got there, you know, she hung on for a little while longer. It was a pretty good party. They were all there.
Right.
And then she was able to go.
Let's start with you, Dr. Rock, and have you talk a little bit about the medical projects you've been involved in, and later on we'll see some slides and explore a bit more. But where have you been and what have you done?
Well, I've been to 14 different countries on projects lasting from 2 weeks to 3 months when I wasn't so busy. We call them working vacations. And I usually go with a team of eye care professionals. Sometimes I go alone. I have friends who are medical missionaries that either want me to help them for a month or, better yet, give them a vacation. So I guess it's a vacation. When I return home, sometimes my patients complain about not being seen. They say, well, I sure hope you enjoyed your vacation. So it's a working vacation.
I'm sure it is. And I wonder what for you was the motivation, because I'm sure you had your hands full with your practice, with home and family life, and other kinds of interests. And not everybody chooses to volunteer time. What was it that pulled you to do that?
I'd given thought of being a medical missionary at times, but I went to school with several physicians who became medical missionaries, and it started out with them saying the need was great and could I come at a certain period of time. So it was mainly their attraction. Plus, you can't work all the time. Everyone should give away some of their services. You just can't stay here all the time. So I jokingly say I work for Kodak and Pan Am, so make the money to go. We sponsor ourselves. Both Pat and I will fund our own projects.
Amounts to a kind of synthesis of the two testaments.
I think you've touched on a primary entryway, an avenue by which people become involved and interested in cults, is that those questions, all the things that are irreconcilable about their understanding of whatever scripture we're talking about. Is that what you've seen and what you've looked at in cults, Ed?
Yeah, there's a hunger, I think, out there in general in society for some type of spiritual fulfillment, and a lot of times people are looking for answers. And usually somewhere in between the extremes of here's the black and white, here's all the answers, and it's all up for grabs, nobody has a clue. Somewhere in the middle, there are people who are seeking and proposing answers and re-looking at them, but that's a difficult process. That to ask people to go through, to say, okay, look at this and then look at these different sides. So a lot of times people seeing confusion in their lives, seeing confusion in society as a whole, tend to look for simple, straightforward answers.
Okay, Ron, I want to say that we're soon to show our fourth package here of videos that show our fourth purpose of the culture, how that relates to the religious community, the arts. But before doing that, I want to say thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. We look to many more fruitful years with Austin Faith Dialogue.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you for your hospitality.
Sure.
But we do want you folks to take a look at this last segment, which shows our artistic interest, Ginger Geyer illustrating for us the sculpting spirit. Be with us next week on Austin Faith Dialogue. You are a talent, and we've seen that already, but now let's look at some more that's on the video.
This piece with the two monkeys I call Monkey Mind Marriage, and it too comes from art history, but you wouldn't know it necessarily unless I showed you this picture. This is one of the icons of art history. It's a painting of Giovanni Arnolfini and his bride by Van Eyck. In the painting, the two are just sort of barely touching hands, and it's more of an ownership issue. My pair have on the hat and the veil of this married couple. But the big difference is in their arms. They're firmly linked here. In fact, it's very hard to get these two monkeys apart. They love each other. Any creative person constantly asks, where do you get your ideas? I say, you know, some people call it magic. I tend to call it grace. It's a very fortuitous and felicitous thing if an idea comes really together and really gels. Legend has it when Johann Sebastian Bach was asked, where do you get your ideas? You're so prolific. You know, he replied, oh, I have so many. I'm lucky if I don't trip over them every morning. And I kind of envisioned this, you know, big fat Bach wandering around in his bunny slippers kicking light bulbs, and hence we have a broken light bulb here. And we have a whole light bulb on it. It's a porcelain rendition of a music book like I had when I was a kid. I was not much of a musician, but my piano teacher, you know, would mark up the pages and give me a gold star if I finally mastered a piece. Such a familiar piece, such a wonderful piece. And I love to take things that are really familiar and try to pull something new and fresh out of them. This piece is one of my favorites, this lunchbox. I made it using a slab and draping it in an actual lunchbox, which sounds pretty simple, but it's really rather hard to get something that fragile then to stand up without breaking. This is hollow. All of it's porcelain. The painting on the front is Crucifixion by Grunwald. For some reason I had to paint this painting on a lunchbox, and I really did not know why I felt so compelled to do it. It made no sense, so I thought, well, maybe this will work. If it's a bit absurd, that helps, you know. And I realized the name of it would be a cliche that we all have heard. There's no such thing as a free lunch.